Hey everybody, I just want to welcome you to the Mastering the AutoNav training. I think we may be waiting on one or two more other people, but we'll kick things off and they can catch up when they make their way in here. We're going to talk a bit about how the AutoNav works. It's going to start a little bit basic because it is kind of a confusing block a little bit, and then we're going to place it on pages and experiment with how what the settings do and what they mean, stuff like that. And then we're going to go through some common use cases of how to use the AutoNav to build certain types of navs. And then we'll get into the types of HTML that the AutoNav outputs and how we can style it using CSS in a theme or in a custom template for that particular AutoNav.
Alrighty, this is your garden variety concrete5 521 site, and let's get to it. So, as you probably know, there are a couple different ways to handle navigation in concrete5. So the first time we sort of show off concrete, we typically show off the concept of blocks. We'll typically use the content block as our benchmark. It's easy to understand. It's sort of the baseline of what people need to do when they're editing content on a site. They need to place HTML, and then typically the next thing we do is we place a more dynamic block, and this is typically the AutoNav. And the AutoNav's purpose, as you probably know, is to build navigations. So here are the options for the AutoNav. They're a little bit confusing. And actually, this can be you could think of this as a contrast to the page list, in that the page list, both the AutoNav and the page list, return pages in your site that are linkable to, you can link to the page. But the AutoNav is been typically more meant to be used when you want to reflect the actual structure of your site. So actually, if I back out of this and I head into the sitemap, this is a good example. Every concrete5 site, as you undoubtedly know, is built in a tree fashion, with the home page being the top level page. If you want to display all the pages of a certain type, or show pages in a list with a description and the date, you might want to use the page list as block is more for that sort of thing, because the page list is meant to return a list of pages that match a certain criteria and perhaps provide pagination, but it's not meant to, it's really only meant to show one level of pages. That's where the two really differ. It could pull pages from the entire, like all over your site, but hierarchically in the page there is only one flat list of pages, wherever they may come from. The AutoNav is different. The AutoNav is meant to return navigations that are nested in a list that correspond to how your site is built out. And we did this primarily because the AutoNav, when we were building concrete for the first client that we were working on, we saw the comps that that they provided, and like every other website, it had a side nav that had, a top level list of pages, and you clicked in and that side nav stayed, but underneath that first open section of pages were the subpages, that type of thing. And that's how the AutoNav came to be, because we didn't want to build those all with HTML. We wanted to have something dynamically create that nav based on the structure of your site. AutoNavs care about page aliases. They care about external links. They really are meant to be pretty close to how your sitemap looks. So that's a good kind of benchmark. Is if you can get your sitemap displaying a certain way, you should be able to use AutoNav to display a portion of that sitemap in much the same way. So without further ado, I will place an AutoNav on my home page. So let's go through these options. The first option is probably the most self-explanatory of anything in the AutoNav block, controlling the order of how pages should appear. So uh, this entire, even pages should appear, that's not really that it's a it's a nice start to a sentence, but it's this entire first option is all about ordering of pages, and by default we use sitemap order. So again, using the sitemap as our guide, this would place pages in the order that they appear in the sitemap, and that's important because you can drag and drop pages in the sitemap. So it's useful to be able to control. It's nice to be able to control the order of your site in the sitemap, and then know that your nav is going to automatically reflect that. And so this is by default what we use. But you have other options here, much like the page list block. You can sort these by their date, and this is kind of key actually to know. The date that we're using for this, I'll back up out of here again. The date that we're using for those options is this date here, which is kind of unhelpfully named public date time. Public is sort of a misnomer. It doesn't control when a page goes live or anything like that. The only reason it's called public is because it is a date that you have the ability to change through the GUI of concrete5. So you could change this to the end part of June, and it'd still show up for everyone. All that it would do is, if you ever created a nav that ordered pages based on date, it would put that page at the end. And a dirty little secret of the AutoNav is before we actually had a sitemap in the dashboard, this is years ago, before we had the dashboard sitemap with the ability to sort pages at a certain level, we actually used the date time occasionally to control navs, because we didn't have we didn't have sitemap sorting. So little history lesson there. More options in the ordering. You can order pages alphabetically, and you can also order them in reverse sitemap order, which is, pretty unlikely, but we thought if we were giving you the ability to do it in the sitemap order, we thought it'd be smart to provide it in reverse sitemap order. Moving right along with the AutoNav options, we can include pages that the user has access to see, or whether they do not have access to. So by default, we only show the user pages that they have permission to see. If you want to disable that, for some reason you want to show pages at a certain level of your site that a user, if they click through, will be taken to they'll be taken to a login screen, you can do that. You just have to click this here. The next option determines where the AutoNav starts. So that's probably the most important thing to remember about this third option here, is display pages is where the AutoNav section you're going to show starts. So by default, it's at the top level, and if you do that, that means you're going to see the top level pages. So we have home, about, blog, search. If you do the second level, you have to remember that this is going to be relative to your page. So this is kind of an important thing to note. Since I'm on the home page, if I were to create an AutoNav that's at the second level, I would never ever see anything, because the home page is at the top level. So you're starting relative to the page that you're on for some of these, and that's important to remember. For example, if I go to a page on the site that's further down, like this sitemap page that's a few pages below, let me just delete this AutoNav block here and add a new one. Now if I say pages at the top level, I still get the same stuff I had before. But if I say pages at the second level, I'm starting at the second level relative to where I am. So you can see that since sitemap is underneath contact us, starting at the second level shows the second level of pages as they are going to trail down to the current page. Third level is the same way. Since I am beneath the sitemap page, I get sitemap as my option. Level above is a different one. This is for certain complicated navs um, that need to behave a certain way, that you want to place manually on a page that's far down your site, and you want to show starting at the level above. So we didn't always have second or third level. Sometimes we only had level above. So, and also if you are 10 levels deep in a very complicated site, you can manually start a page at the level above the current page. At the current level, it's pretty self-explanatory. And then at the level below, sometimes you want to create a nav on a page that starts below your current page. And then finally, you can start an AutoNav block at an arbitrary page in your site that isn't part of the current page. So now, since I've selected the blog, I can start at the blog, and now I'm seeing the pages that are directly beneath the blog. One thing that's important to note, you're seeing the home page when we start an AutoNav block on the home page, but you don't see any of the other pages when we start a nav on those pages. That's because the AutoNav is designed to start below the option that you select. So I say beneath a particular page, I have select blog. I don't see blog in this list. I only see hello world because it's immediately below the blog. We used to have an option in the AutoNav that let us optionally include the page that we were starting on in the AutoNav. I don't totally remember when we lost that. It was a while ago. I may not have even made it into concrete5, but I think that might be useful for a number of people. Sometimes we'll do that, and then we will automatically hack a custom template for the AutoNav to include the parent page. So that's how we get around that in sites that we do for clients. But it might be helpful to have that as an option in the AutoNav. So I'm going to start at the top level. And then we get to probably the most complicated option of the AutoNav, which is subpages to display. And what this does is it controls how the pages below the page that you start at are shown. And that's a fancy way of saying what do you do as you traverse from the particular level down. If you're set to none, we don't traverse down, which is why if I set the display pages to show at the top level and then subpages to display to none, I don't get any subpages. I just get the 4 top level pages in the site. The easiest one of these to understand is display all, because what that does is it says as I start traversing down from the top, what types of subpages am I going to show? And if you say display all, that means under each one of these 4 pages, if I have any subpages, I'm going to show all of those pages. And I'm going to do them, for how long? I'm going to do them until I get to, I'm going to do them until this display subpage levels option is till this subpage levels option is achieved, basically. So the idea is once you say how you're going to display subpages, then you say how long you're going to show them for. So if I say display all and display all here, this is a very easy way for me to build a sitemap. And that's essentially what I've done at this point. By saying pages should appear in their sitemap order and starting at the top level and then saying all to both those options, I now have basically a sitemap of my site in the order that it shows up in the order that it shows up in the sitemap. Now, looks like we've uncovered a little bit of a bug in the AutoNav preview, actually. So this is the other options in these last two are probably more easily shown by just going through them. So the subpage levels, if you say display all, we will traverse all the way from the top to the bottom as far as we can go. So that's a very easy way of showing all of them. You can display a custom amount of subpages. So if I say 1 and save it, well, that's not right. It's very strange. If we say 1 and display it, you'll notice that we've started at the top of our site, and we are only traversing down one level. So even though we're on a sitemap page and we aren't actually showing the sitemap page that we added, which is under Contact Us, because we only are traversing down one level of subpages. If we say 2 levels, then if I refresh this, just loading from fonts.googleapis.com. Come on, Google. Jesus Christ. If we say 2, then you'll notice we're back to where we were. But if this site had 50 levels, we would only show up to the 2nd level. So that's what display a custom amount does. Display subpages to current is a fancy way of saying just keep traversing down from wherever you start until you get to the current page and then stop showing pages. So the easy way to show this is if I add a subpage beneath sitemap, now if I say show all subpages, you'll see it shows sitemap subpage here. But then if I say display subpages to current, whoops. Well, that's wrong. Well, it appears as though there's a bug in these display subpages to current and display subpages to current +1, because these definitely don't seem to be working the way they're supposed to. In an ideal world, display subpages to current would do exactly what I am going to do here manually. It should traverse down from the top to Contact Us to sitemap, but then not continue down to the not continue down any further. And then display subpages to current +1 should do this. But unfortunately, display subpages to current is not functioning the way that it's supposed to, and neither is this one. So that's going to be one. So that's going to be one that we tackle. But fortunately, there are enough options that we have more than enough ways to get to where we want to be in what we want to show. And so that basically is, in a nutshell, how the AutoNav options work. It appears there are a couple kinks in there. I'm not entirely sure when those got added, but we will take a look at those. All right. Moving right along, I wanted to explain a little bit of how the how a couple custom attributes impact the AutoNav. So as you can see, I'm showing this AutoNav here, and if I check out my sitemap, you'll notice there are a couple pages that aren't showing up. There's one page that's not showing up in the AutoNav that is showing up in the sitemap, and that is the blog archives page. Instead, there is an empty space where that might otherwise be beneath the blog, and that's because the blog archives has a custom attribute attached to it, and this custom attribute is exclude from nav. This is an important one to know. It is installed by default in concrete5. You can apply it to any page, and then the AutoNav will skip over that page when it is rendering. It will still be included, as of today, it'll still be included in the results that get passed from the block controller of the AutoNav into the view layer, but then it is excluded through code in the AutoNav view layer, and we will go through that momentarily. It's pretty simple checking that stuff. We use that pretty frequently in the core. We have a accompanying one in exclude from PageList that you can see there. Just attach that to any particular page, and it will stop showing up in any AutoNav block that you place. It'll still be browsable. It does not impact permissions in any way. It's just a handy shortcut for making sure something doesn't show up in the AutoNav for private pages that you still want to be able to navigate to or link to. There is another custom attribute that is kind of useful. This one actually is not installed by default, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into page attributes. And what you're going to want to do to add this is go into your dashboard dropdown, find pages and themes, and go into attributes, and then add a checkbox attribute. And the handle for this one is replace link with first in nav, and you have to make sure that that is exactly named if you want to use this particular functionality. You can name it whatever you want. You just have to give it the right handle. And then once that's created, you can use this attribute to force people who click on a particular link in their AutoNav to jump to the first subpage of that. So for example, let's say the contact us page was just a holder page for the sitemap page underneath it. I'm sure you've seen a lot of sites that are built this way, where, you know, when you click into a page in the left-hand nav, you're actually jumping into the first child page of that. You're jumping into the first child page of that option in the nav. So in order to do that, when you click into Contact Us, you're on the Contact Us page. But if you wanted to jump into Sitemap, you would just go into Contact Us. Properties. And click on Navigate to Child Page. Save it. Refresh the page. And then when you click on Contact Us, it actually has taken us into the sitemap page instead of the Contact Us top page. And that's and that is as well a custom behavior of the AutoNav. Again, if you link to the contact page directly, it's going to render the contact page directly. There are solutions in the marketplace that are free that will change it so that the moment you click on that page, it will actually redirect you, even if you link to the page directly. But they have they were more recently added to the marketplace than when we added this to the AutoNav. This was just kind of a nice little Easter egg that we thought might be useful for people to know about, or that we thought might be useful for people building navigations that just needed a quick and dirty way of automatically linking through to the page there. Jalen asks if this and any other handy tricks are documented. Yeah, they should be documented. Let's take a trip to our site. I'm trying to recall if these are in the core documentation or if they are in a how-to. Okay, I found this that I recall writing actually. If you look in the how-to section and search for AutoNav, you can find this primer on the AutoNav block. I wrote this originally about 2 years ago on the AutoNav block. It's a fairly lengthy. It's for an older version of concrete5, but a lot of the options are all are still pretty useful. It gets pretty detailed into code as well, but it should be a nice companion to what we're talking about today. And it does document those two page attributes.